Welcome back to A Slice of News, where I cut you off a slice of news. Well known conservative commentator and former Fox News host Tucker Carlson has said he is done with the Republican Party. As such a long term conservative voice, this is quite an unexpected move. For many, Tucker Carlson was the voice of the Conservative Party. What he said was the party line, and many conservatives knew what to think when Tucker told them what to think. So for him to come out and say he no longer wants to associate with the Republican Party is surprising. But I suppose Tucker's break from the Republican Party shows that even the most hardline, established conservative has their breaking point, where they can no longer defend that which they spent decades defending. For Tucker, it seems like the breaking point was the war in Iran. While he'd previously been a pretty big supporter of the president and the administration, his support began to wane once the administration made it clear they wanted to do military action in Iran. And despite running on a platform about being America first and being all about what was best for the American citizen, that they were going into a battle overseas at the behest of foreign interests and not for the best interest of the voters that elected them into power. Tucker was a pretty strong opponent to the war, citing just how much the president was doing at the behest and benefit of Israel, saying, quote, "That's not just like they're off in the wrong direction, like that it's unacceptable, that's treasonous, it's immoral, it can't continue." Those are strong words and a strong condemnation of an administration he once supported, very vocally, in fact. He also said, quote, "How could I or any American voter support a political party that is not loyal to the United States? That puts the interests of a foreign country above those of its own citizens. It's not possible to vote for people like that, and I'm not going to." While I wholeheartedly embrace his very public split with the Republican Party, I think it's really rich of him citing that the Republican Party isn't America first enough and that their actions are treasonous, when this is the same guy that has been very vocally pro-Russia many times, a nation that has been very much not aligned with American interests and has been outwardly hostile to us to a point that it's nearly an enemy of the United States, and a man who repeatedly downplayed the literally treasonous actions on January 6th and framing it as something that wasn't actually all that bad. So despite possible outward signs, it seems very unlikely that Tucker Carlson has suddenly grown a moral compass and realized the error of his ways. Despite his claims that he's been a 35-year-long defender of the Republican Party, but their current actions are indefensible, he seems to have had no issue defending them up till this point. I think that's part of why I'm not out there celebrating his defection as much as I would like to be, because it doesn't really feel like it means much. Okay, he's decided that he's done with the current Republican Party, but a lot of the things he believes is still in line with what they believe. He's still in favor of many of the things they are in favor of. In a lot of ways, him publicly leaving the Republican Party doesn't mean a whole lot. Tucker Carlson has always been an opportunist. The real question here now is, what is he trying to get? What is his angle here? Is he trying to form an entirely new conservative party outside of the traditional Republican Party? Is this part of a larger plan to leverage himself into a presidential run, possibly running on a platform of a return to true conservative values, positioning itself firmly apart from the Trumpian Republican Party that we have today? That much can only remain, at least for the moment, purely speculation. But I'd be willing to bet, based on who he is as a person and his last several decades as a strong conservative voice, I think it's likely that he will be trying something like that in the near future. A leopard like him simply cannot change its spots. He can decry the modern GOP, and he can say he doesn't want to be associated with the modern Republican Party, but he is still a strong conservative and will push strong conservative ideas and values, even if it's not under the tent of the current conservative political party. A lot of people are wondering if that's exactly what his plan is, and it's not that he's disavowing the Republican Party and its values, it's that he's disavowing the current Republican Party so he can establish his own, more extreme conservative party and run under that banner. If that did truly end up being his end goal, the real question would be, of the two political parties we do have right now, which would be the one that would lose the most. Obviously, a more extreme conservative party would draw away many of the hardline conservatives from the current Republican Party who feel that it's not extreme and conservative enough. So in an election, it would draw potential Republican votes away, potentially costing them elections that they may have won by a very narrow margin. And the rise of a new ultra-conservative political party would mean that Democrats would have to splitting their campaigning against two candidates instead of just the usual one, potentially draining their campaign resources even faster. But I suppose at the same time, third parties don't exactly make a lot of political traction, even if they were led by a charismatic, well-loved candidate like Tucker Carlson would potentially become. And there's a good chance that even if it was established, it would largely fizzle out right away, since it would have very little realistic chance of making any real political headway in an actual presidential election. The most a Tucker Carlson-led political party could truly hope for in a presidential election would be maybe taking votes away from whoever the Republican candidate and costing them certain states and letting Democrats end up winning. When you see a prominent and established conservative voice like Tucker Carlson publicly leaving the Republican Party, it's tempting to hope that this is the beginning of the end for the Republican Party and the current administration's stranglehold upon it. But while it's undeniable that this president and this administration has largely driven the GOP into the ground and ruined its reputation amongst more moderate conservatives, the idea that it is truly falling apart feels like it may just be wishful thinking. I feel like when it comes to the quote-unquote end of the Republican Party, we've been here before. Every time we feel like this must be the end for them, it never is. And I think that's one of the most frustrating things about this. Such a prominent figure publicly defecting from the party should feel good, should feel like it might be a sign of something positive to come. But it also feels like every time you get your hopes up about something negative happening to the Republican Party, they're dashed almost immediately because they find some way to become impervious to whatever damage it looks like they're about to incur. Donald Trump's rise to power again felt like it should never have happened after how badly he did in his first term and how good things were starting to look after Joe Biden's time as president. There was the sense that the Trump Republican Party must be over, and surely now they would have to change for the better. Instead, they just returned again, in a lot of ways worse than ever before. And Donald Trump's grip on the party was only that much more solidified, and he showed that the current Republican Party well and truly belongs only to him. And those both within the party and amongst the voters were not enough to stop him. So I find it a bit hard to believe that even if Tucker Carlson did manage to establish a new third party that was much more extreme conservative and drew a lot of the more extremist conservative voters away from the current Republican Party, that it's already pretty extreme on its own, that it would make enough of a difference to do anything in a general election. But regardless of what his ultimate aims are at leaving the Republican Party as a whole, it's important to remember that Tucker Carlson is still the awful person he was even without the official Republican branding. He's still the same racist that pushed white replacement theory and said that immigrants would make our country, quote, poorer and dirtier, and went to bat for Donald Trump over and over and over again across both of his presidential terms. In a lot of ways, he's a lot like Donald Trump. Everything they do is about getting attention and, more importantly, getting money. They're both opportunists who will say and do pretty much whatever it takes to get gullible people to give them the attention and money that they desire. And I think the seeming public split with the Republican Party is just more of the same. He likely felt he had gotten as much money and attention out of the current Republican Party as he could, and now wants to move on to another group to do it all over again. In a lot of ways, Tucker's leaving of the Republican Party doesn't mean much of anything. He's still going to push his awful beliefs on an audience that eats them up. Still be the same ultra-conservative white supremacist he's always been. As a person and as a conservative voice, he will not have changed at all. Though if you ask many of the people on the right online, they tell you that Tucker is a traitor to the party and they're glad to see him go because they never really liked him anyway. I've always found it amusing how quickly those on the right turn on their own when they stop following the party line and don't quite fill the mold they are expected to. What the future holds for now non-Republican Tucker Carlson remains to be seen. Maybe it's a presidential run as a third party. Maybe it's something else entirely. I honestly wouldn't put it past him to later make a public return to the Republican Party if this public exit from the party doesn't quite get him the money and success he's hoping for. I suppose all we can do now is wait and see. All right, guys, that'll be it for this episode of A Slice of News. I've been your host, Mr. Slice, and until next time when I cut you off, another slice of news. And don't forget to rate and review the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you find it. Thank you.